English learners, welcome back to the English Speaking Podcast, your cozy place to learn easy English through real-life conversations. I'm Jennifer.
And I'm Daniel. Before we start today, we just want to say, I hope you like our new studio and new look, and we hope you will like and support the changes we made to upgrade.
Daniel, can I just say, the studio feels a little different today.
Yeah, I feel it too. Not bad, just different. A bit calmer, maybe?
Or maybe we're just overthinking it again.
That's possible. We do that a lot.
But to be honest, today's topic actually matches this feeling. Not loud, not dramatic, just something people carry quietly.
Yeah, something that doesn't always show on the outside, but affects everything inside.
Today, we're talking about self-worth and how easily it gets tied to other people's approval.
And I think almost everyone can relate to that, even if they don't say it out loud.
Right. Wanting approval is such a human thing. Nobody is really immune to it.
And if you're immune to something, it means it doesn't affect you easily. But honestly, most people are not immune to a slightly cold reply.
One small, dry message and suddenly your whole mood changes.
Exactly. And then you start replaying it in your head again and again.
That replaying part is so real.
And approval becomes this emotional shortcut. It feels good, but also very powerful.
Yes, because approval feels safe. When someone praises you or chooses you, your mind instantly relaxes.
Like everything is okay again.
Exactly. But the problem is, it doesn't last.
And that's where the deeper issue starts, when self-worth slowly depends on those reactions.
Right. And when that happens, people start falling back on approval without even realizing it.
If you fall back on something, it means you rely on it when things feel uncertain or difficult.
So when people feel insecure, they fall back on praise, reassurance, compliments, even being needed.
And that's why it becomes addictive, because it doesn't just feel nice, it feels like relief.
Especially when you're already doubting yourself, approval doesn't feel like a bonus, it feels like oxygen.
And that's a dangerous place to be, because then your emotional stability depends on outside signals.
Like waiting for a message, a smile, a yes, or a compliment to feel okay again.
Almost like emotional Wi-Fi, one weak signal and everything drops.
That's actually a perfect way to put it.
So approval gives short-term comfort, but it doesn't build long-term stability.
And that naturally leads us to a bigger question. What is self-worth actually?
Yeah, because people often confuse it with confidence.
But they're not the same thing at all.
Confidence is about what you can do. Self-worth is about what you believe you deserve as a person.
Confidence says, I can handle this. Self-worth says, even if I fail, I still matter.
That difference changes everything.
And the truth is, most people don't even notice when their self-worth is quietly getting tied to performance, work, or relationships.
Like when your job starts becoming proof that you matter.
Or when social approval starts deciding how you feel about yourself.
And slowly you stop asking, how do I feel? And start asking, how did they see me?
Exactly. And that shift is where things start to get complicated.
Because once approval becomes central, even small moments can shake you deeply.
And that's exactly where this conversation gets even more interesting, because there are real patterns behind it that most people never notice. And that's exactly where this conversation gets even more interesting, because there are real patterns behind it that most people never notice.
Yeah, and I think the funny thing is, people don't even realize when it starts. It's not like a clear moment where you decide, okay, from today, my self-worth depends on others. It just slowly slips in.
Exactly. It's like it sneaks in quietly. One day you're just a normal person, and then suddenly you're like, wait, why am I thinking about that one reply from 3 hours ago?
Yes, and it's always the smallest things. A short message, a delayed reply, a slightly different tone, and your brain goes, something is wrong here.
Something is wrong here feeling is so real though. And the worst part is, most of the time, nothing is actually wrong.
Exactly, but your mind doesn't care. It starts building a whole story, like, did I say something wrong? Are they upset? Did I sound weird?
And then suddenly you're analyzing your own personality like it's a school assignment.
Yes, and the brain doesn't stop there. It replays everything, every word, every pause, every emoji choice.
Oh no, the emoji analysis phase is the worst. Like, should I have used smiley face instead of awkwardy face?
And what's interesting is this is where approval starts becoming powerful because now your mood depends on how someone responds.
Right, and the brain starts learning this pattern. If they respond well, I feel good. If they don't, I feel off.
And that's where it slowly turns into something deeper. You don't just want approval, you start needing it.
Needing it. That's a strong word because needing something means you depend on it to feel okay.
Exactly. And once that happens, even normal situations start feeling emotional, like a simple seen message can feel like rejection.
Yes, and your brain is like, okay, emergency meeting. Everyone panic.
Exactly. And what's even more interesting is people think this only happens in relationships or friendships, but it also shows up in work.
Oh, yes, definitely. Like when your value starts depending on how useful you are at your job.
And then you start thinking, if I don't perform well, maybe I don't matter as much.
And that's such a heavy thought to carry quietly because on the outside, everything looks fine, but inside, there's pressure.
Yeah, like constant pressure to stay needed, stay important, stay valuable.
And honestly, it becomes exhausting without you even realizing it.
True. And the strange part is, even when people praise you, it still doesn't fully settle your mind.
Because it doesn't last. It fades quickly, so you start looking for the next confirmation.
Exactly. It's like emotional hunger. You eat a little approval, feel better for a moment, and then you're hungry again.
Emotional hunger, that actually makes a lot of sense.
And this is why understanding self-worth is so important, because if you don't build it inside, you keep searching outside.
Right, and that's why this whole topic is not just emotional, it's actually very practical for daily life.
And I think in the next part, we should really talk about what self-worth actually looks like in real life, not just in theory.
Yes, because it's not about being perfect or not caring at all, it's something much more real than that. But maybe that's where real change starts. Not in becoming perfect, but in becoming more honest with yourself.
Yeah, and I think that honesty part sounds simple, but in real life, it's not that easy because most of us are used to adjusting ourselves depending on who we're with.
True. Like in one group, you're a bit louder, in another, you're more quiet, in another, you're careful with every word.
And then you go home and think, wait, which one of these was actually me?
Yes, that confusion is so real. Like you start questioning your own personality.
And the funny part is, no one else is thinking that deeply about you, but your mind is like, let's analyze everything I said today.
And it feels so serious in your head, like you're reviewing your entire social performance.
Yeah, like a full replay. Every smile, every pause, every word choice.
And suddenly you remember things you said 3 hours ago and think, why did I say that?
And this is where self-worth quietly gets affected because you start depending on how those moments landed with others.
So if people respond well, you feel okay. If they don't, you start doubting yourself.
Yes, and over time, your mood starts following other people's reactions.
That's actually a little scary when you think about it, because then your inner world is not really yours anymore.
Yeah, and it becomes tiring without you even noticing. You're constantly checking, adjusting, rethinking.
And sometimes it's not even big situations. Even small things can change your whole energy.
Like a short reply or someone being a bit quiet, and suddenly your brain starts creating stories.
And most of those stories are not even true, but they feel real in the moment.
That's the problem. Feelings become louder than facts.
Yes, feelings are very dramatic sometimes.
And when self-worth is weak, you start treating every reaction like a reflection of your value.
Like you're being rated all the time without anyone actually saying it.
Yeah, and that creates pressure. Quiet pressure, but constant.
And I think that's why people feel so exhausted after social interactions.
Because they weren't just talking, they were also monitoring themselves the whole time.
That's true. Like half of your attention is just on, how am I coming across?
And that takes energy, a lot of it.
No wonder people feel tired, even after normal conversations.
And then they go home and still think about it again.
Yes, like the conversation doesn't really end, it just continues in your head.
And that's where self-worth becomes important.
because it gives you something steady inside instead of constantly reacting to outside signals.
So instead of asking, did they like me, it slowly becomes, was I okay with how I showed up?
Yeah, and not shift takes time. It feels a bit uncomfortable at first because it's new.
Of course, because you're used to getting answers from outside, not inside.
And now you're learning to sit with yourself a bit more.
And maybe that's not always comfortable, but it's more stable in the long run.
Yeah, and in the next part, we should talk about the habits that quietly damage self-worth, because most people don't even notice them happening in their daily life.
Yes, and some of them are so common, people will probably recognize themselves instantly.
And what's the fourth habit?
Constant self-doubt. That one is really common. Always checking yourself after everything you say or do. Did I say that right? Did I sound weird? Was that awkward?
Your brain basically becomes a full-time review system, like you're being evaluated all the time.
Yeah, and the funny part is, nobody else is actually reviewing you that deeply, but your mind behaves like there's a committee analyzing your every move.
That's true. And it feels very real in the moment. Like even a simple conversation can start feeling complicated afterwards.
Exactly. And then you go back and replay everything, the words, the tone, even your facial expressions sometimes.
Yes, and suddenly you're like, why did I laugh like that?
And this constant self-checking slowly takes you away from just living the moment. You're there, but also not really there.
That's actually a nice way to say it. Like physically present, but mentally reviewing.
Yes, and when these habits combine, people-pleasing, over-identifying with success, ignoring boundaries, and constant self-doubt, they start shaping your self-worth quietly.
So it's not one big thing, it's many small things adding up.
Exactly, and that's why people don't notice it early. It doesn't feel like a problem at first. It just feels like being nice or being responsible or trying your best.
Yeah, it even sounds positive when you say it like that.
Right, but over time it becomes tiring because your attention is always outside. What people think, how they react, what they expect.
And then your own voice becomes quieter in the background.
Yes, and that's the part people often miss. They think they're just being careful, but slowly they start disconnecting from themselves.
And maybe that's why even simple decisions start feeling heavy, like you're overthinking everything.
Exactly. Because if you're used to looking outside for approval, even small choices feel like they need validation.
Like choosing a message reply becomes a life decision.
Yeah, and then you start feeling mentally tired without doing anything big.
That kind of tiredness is hard to explain to people because nothing dramatic happens, but you still feel drained.
And that's because the energy is going into managing yourself, not just living.
I think many people will relate to that.
Yeah, and once you start noticing these patterns, it becomes easier to understand why self-worth feels unstable sometimes.
Instead of being harsh on yourself after every small mistake.
Many people don't realize how critical their inner voice becomes over time. It slowly turns into that one strict teacher who never gives you a break.
The type who is never satisfied no matter what you do, even if you try your best, it's like, could be better.
Exactly. And that voice starts focusing only on what went wrong while completely ignoring what went fine.
So basically, your brain becomes a professional mistake detector.
Yes, working 24/7, no holidays, no salary.
Worst job ever, honestly.
And when that becomes your normal way of thinking, your self-worth starts feeling weaker without any obvious reason.
That actually sounds tiring, like carrying pressure in your head all the time.
It is, and the shift begins in very small moments. After something uncomfortable happens, instead of asking, what did I do wrong, you try asking, what do I need right now?
That feels softer, like talking to yourself as a person, not a problem.
And it slowly changes your internal tone. You stop treating yourself like a project that always needs fixing.
Imagine treating yourself like a never-ending DIY project, always repairing something.
Some people are doing exactly that without realizing it.
True.
And I think when that changes, everything else starts feeling lighter too.
It does, because you stop turning every small mistake into a big story about your value.
And instead of fighting yourself all the time, you start supporting yourself a bit more.
That support builds stability, so even when things go wrong outside, you're not immediately falling into self-criticism.
I can see how that connects with everything we discussed earlier, how people depend so much on external approval.
And these internal habits slowly reduce that dependence.
Another important part is learning to sit with discomfort instead of reacting instantly.
Most people try to fix uncomfortable feelings immediately, as if discomfort is an emergency.
Like, warning, slight awkward moment detected, fix it now.
That's exactly how the mind behaves, but not every uncomfortable feeling needs action. Sometimes it just needs space.
Like when someone misunderstands you and your brain starts writing a whole emotional drama series about it.
Yes, but instead of feeding that story, you pause and let it pass without connecting it to your worth.
That sounds simple in theory, but in real life, your mind doesn't really cooperate that easily.
It takes practice, and part of that practice is speaking to yourself with patience instead of criticism.
So instead of being your own strict teacher, you become a bit more like a supportive friend.
And over time, that shift makes your inner world much steadier and less dependent on outside reactions.
One thing I keep wondering is, why do people trust others' opinions about them more than their own experience?
It often starts early. You get used to measuring yourself through feedback, grades, reactions, approval. Slowly, it becomes automatic.
So even as adults, we're still kind of operating on that old system.
Pretty much. And the tricky part is, external feedback is louder. Your own thoughts are quieter, so you start assuming they matter less.
That makes sense, but it also sounds unfair to yourself, like ignoring your own voice in your own life.
It is, but the shift happens when you start pausing before reacting. For example, someone says something about you. Instead of instantly accepting it, you check. Do I actually agree with this?
That pause sounds small, but I guess it changes a lot.
It does. Without that pause, every opinion enters your mind like it has VIP access.
No security check, just straight entry.
Exactly. And over time, your mind gets crowded with opinions that don't even belong to you.
That's such a strange image, like a room full of people shouting different things about you. No wonder it feels confusing sometimes.
And in that noise, your own voice gets lost. That's why learning to slow down your reaction is important.
But slowing down sounds simple. In real life, it feels like everything is happening too fast.
True, that's why it's not about being perfect. Even a 2-second pause is enough to create a gap between reaction and response.
So instead of reacting on autopilot, you give yourself a moment to actually think.
Yes, and in that moment, you start noticing patterns, like which opinions you always accept without question.
Like certain people's words hitting harder than others.
Right, and sometimes it's not even about the person, it's about what you already believe about yourself. Their words just activate it.
That's a bit uncomfortable to realize, but also kind of useful.
It gives you clarity. Instead of blaming every external opinion, you start understanding your internal triggers.
And I guess once you see that, you can't really unsee it.
That's where change starts, not by forcing confidence, but by understanding where your reactions come from.
So it's less about becoming a different person and more about untangling what's already there.
Exactly. And once things become clearer internally, you stop getting pulled around so easily by outside voices.
All right, then. I guess it's time to lower the volume and stop letting every thought act like a CEO in my head.
That's a good start. And don't worry if it takes time. Even peace learns slowly.
I think I needed this reminder more than I realized. Less pressure, more understanding.
That's the direction. Small changes, repeated often, are what actually reshape how you feel.
And maybe I'll stop treating every random thought like it's a life announcement.
That alone will save you a lot of unnecessary stress.
My brain really needs a do not disturb mode sometimes.
Most of us do. The difference is learning when to turn it on.
I'm going to practice that, slowly but properly.
That's enough. You don't have to rush the process.
All right, I feel like this conversation ended up being more helpful than I expected.
Sometimes the simplest reflections do that.
So, before we wrap up, thank you for this.
Always, take it easy and be kind to your mind.
And to everyone listening, if this helped you even a little, make sure you like the video, share it with someone who overthinks too much like me, and don't forget to subscribe for more conversations like this.
And we'll see you in the next one. Take care of yourself.
Goodbye, everyone. Stay calm, stay kind, and don't let your thoughts bully you.
Goodbye.